On this week's show, I was delighted to be joined by our very own Jaime Smith. Jaime runs our permanent civil engineering desk here at Brownlee Dean. And Jaime talks about the highs and lows of recruitment when she first started in the industry, moving from public sector, working for the council, then moving into recruitment and running 124 temps, whilst also managing a family with 2 young children. It's a really great story. And Jaime also talks about the future of the recruitment industry and the current challenges the construction industry are facing as we approach the end of the furlough period. Jaime's humble, she's honest, and I hope you really enjoy the show. Thanks. So Jaime, welcome to the show. I've done you a brief intro there. It probably doesn't do it justice. So do you want to tell everyone who's listening who you are and what you do?
Jaime, I'm 42. I've got 2 children, both at university, and I've been in recruitment now since 2012, middle of 2012. Prior to that, funnily enough, I worked for 17 years in the public sector. And
a big difference. Yeah.
A big change. And the reason that I kind of moved into recruitment was I was at a period of time where the councils were making a lot of people redundant, budgets were being cut, and I worked with a lot of amazing people at the council. But I worked with a lot of people who weren't amazing and would try and get away with doing a minimal amount of work that they could. And I've always been a grafter. And I really I was taking voluntary redundancy and I was just looking at what my options were. And I thought, I want a job where I can be financially rewarded for putting extra effort in and doing a good job. I worked with a lot of people that it didn't matter what effort they put in or what I put in, we all got paid the same amount of money at the end of the month. And it really didn't sit well with me. Yeah. And that is one of the perks of recruitment. It's a tough industry.
Don't we all know? Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're doing well and you've got good relationships with your candidates and with your clients, you do reap the rewards of that financially.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, it's incredibly rewarding. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. So just explain kind of what your role is at Brownlee Dean for everyone who's listening.
Yeah, so my role at Brownlee Dean is I'm a managing consultant and I basically manage the permanent division at Brownlee Dean. So any permanent vacancies that come into the business, that is basically what my forte is. So I'm a very process-driven person. I like everything done in the right way. Permanent recruitment's a little slower than contract and freelance recruitment, which I've done. But I definitely think I'm more suited to the permanent recruitment. And on top of obviously sourcing candidates, part of my job is business development and reaching out and establishing relationships with new contacts in the civil engineering and infrastructure sector, really. So in a nutshell, that's it.
In a nutshell, yeah. So we've known each other for, what is it now? Is it
5 years, maybe?
5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Since you joined Linear, so yeah. Just, I mean, like, I just want to kind of strip it back a little bit there. So obviously, let's take it back to the council. So massively different, different sector altogether. Why recruitment?
So, well, it's funny because I wanted to go to college when I left school, and it wasn't an option just because of family reasons. So I ended up taking an apprenticeship, and I actually ended up being the office junior for a director in one of the sectors within Sunderland Council. And I basically was the tea girl for like 12 months. I literally made tea and coffee for like the board of directors for 12 months. And it was part of the careers service. So there is definitely a link between where I've come from in the council and recruitment, because when I was at the council, there was a specific team within the careers service that I just looked at, and I was just inspired by. It was all women in this team, and they were all employment and training advisors, and they basically supported people from 16 to 24 who were unemployed. And I just seen what they did and how they helped those young people, and I was just really inspired by them. So I basically asked if I could start doing training towards working towards getting into that department. So for 10 years at the council, I did a qualification every single year for a decade. I had 2 children in that time as well, and basically I became a qualified careers advisor after 10 years.
How old were your kids at that point then? How old were Jane and Ollie?
So, oh God, you're testing me maths here. So that would have been like, well, they were both very young. They were both like toddlers when I qualified. I was an employment and training advisor for about 5 years and a careers advisor for 7 before I took redundancy.
That must have been incredibly challenging.
It was, but I just had that in my sights, and that's what I wanted. And I've always just been the kind of person, if I want something, I just go and get it, basically.
Did you read like so? Obviously, I see the link there from kind of career advisor. Did you? I suppose moving from that into recruitment. So, like, tell me about kind of your first recruitment experience, because like as we work in, anyone who's listened to this who's worked in recruitment knows like how kind of vastly different is in the private sector working in recruitment as it is in a public sector career advisor role. So that, I mean, how was that? It must have been a bit of a baptism of fire.
So I was extremely naive. I was a grown woman, obviously. I was like in my 30s, and I just thought, yeah, I've been a careers advisor. I've been giving all this great advice to people and helping people. Recruitment is just the same, but you actually like place them in the job. It'll be brilliant. So I went into recruitment very, very naively, thinking that it was all about just popping somebody into a job and getting a fee for it. And boy, did I have my eyes opened. It was really funny because the lady that actually did my very first initial interview for a job in recruitment actually tried to put me off joining recruitment. And she actually was really honest and said, what you think recruitment isn't what it is, and you've come from a public sector background, and I'm worried you will not survive in this industry. It's brutal, it's cutthroat, and I often think about that interview now, and I just kind of refused to take anything on board that she was saying, and I just basically said, no, I want to go for recruitment, I want to do this job. And I got a second interview with the director, and he offered us a job on the spot, and I took it, and that's, yeah.
Never look back. Never look back. Yeah.
Never look back. Yeah, so my idea of recruitment before I joined recruitment was completely different to what it actually is.
Did you have any doubts over the kind of the first the first few months into your role that you've made the right decision? So
without sounding big-headed, I really kind of took to it like a duck to water. So the first probably 8 months in recruitment, I must admit, I was assigned to a team that was recruiting for the public sector.
The irony.
So I was managing recruitment for the NHS, for the councils. So obviously I knew what I was doing in terms of what I was recruiting for, but I had a lot of success in the first 8 months of me joining recruitment. So much so that I was potentially being poached by other teams in the business. And after 8 months of one of the directors struggling, I ended up going into the construction team. That was his baby, and he basically was like, "You're coming to construction." And my first job was a senior quantity surveyor, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. It was for civil engineering as well, and it was just way over my head.
Over your head, yeah.
So I'd say the back end of the first year in recruitment was spent obviously at work, going home, had 2 young children, and I just used to sit and read about civil engineering, about quantity surveyors, site engineers. And I found as well really difficult in the first kind of 15 months was all the jargon and the language that goes with working in construction.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, isn't it? I think, I mean, for me personally, like when I started my recruitment career, I'd done a sport and recreation development degree, and I worked in a clothes shop essentially for a few years. So, you know, I although I had kind of people in my family who were builders, I didn't really understand the you know, construction jargon. I do think it takes quite a long time to kind of get up to speed with that, to be honest. It really is like it's a bit of a baptism of fire. I remember because I started on a trades and labour desk. I remember when someone said, "Oh, you know, so I remember a client ringing in, UCS Civils it was. They've gone into administration now, but yeah, a guy called Bob Meredith rang me and said he needed a rubber duck driver. And I was like, what? You know, I had to speak to him. What the hell is a rubber duck driver for? Yeah. You soon got to find out what it was, and and it's quite interesting the reasons why that it's called a rubber duck driver. But it's very challenging. I think as well. You know, I can't imagine what it must have been like for you having 2 young children and working. Could you remind me what desk you did again to start with? Was it?
So when I first started recruitment, I recruited for basically office staff, so secretaries, audio typists.
Was it contract?
It was all contract.
Yeah. So yeah, I suppose we're thinking about having 2 kids. Yeah.
I had 124, predominantly women working for me. 124.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I had to
go. Was that
360?
Was that 360 role back then? I mean, there weren't resources back then, was there really? Did that?
I didn't have a resource there. No.
Yeah.
So basically, calling up clients, looking if they had, asking if they had any recruitment needs, and obviously then getting the job on, qualifying the job, and sourcing the best candidates, organising interviews, everything, the whole thing. But then once those people were out in work, managing timesheets, pay queries, the full 360, the full shebang with 124 people.
Wow.
At peak.
Yeah, well, I've been there myself. It's yeah. I can't imagine doing that. I mean, to be honest, I run my business now, as you well know, with a 2-year-old little boy, and I find that difficult. So, but being a fairly young mum with 2 young kids and doing a contract desk where there's 124 temps, how did you cope with that?
Well, I think I'm a little bit insane now, to be honest. So.
I wouldn't disagree with that, Jamie.
You just do what you've got to do, don't you? When you're doing it, when you're in it, you just do it. Yeah. You don't really think about it. I did end up leaving that business because it did become too challenging for me. With the children, the long hours, trying to manage everything. Even when I moved into the construction team, I had just under 70 contractors out working for me with no support. I did all that as a 360 consultant, and it just started to become a little bit too much, and work-life balance certainly wasn't even, it didn't exist at that time. So I made the decision to leave the company at that point.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it, how things have changed in the industry. We're a lot more, we should always be kind, but I think we're a lot more accepting of especially with what's been going on over the last 6 months, of what's happening in the world and people's lives. And I think it's important really for women in recruitment that, you know, that like, it's a very, very challenging job. It's long hours. And, you know, to have a young family and to run a contract desk at that level, you know, I can't even imagine what that must have been like, to be honest. Just, you know, to keep a family running as well at the same time. It's just incredible.
I was a lot slimmer then. I think I actually looked older then than I do now. Definitely got more of a definitely have more of a balance now. Than then. Yeah. But I do think the industry's changed in that way as well. And like you say, through COVID, I think people have just become more aware that there does have to be a work-life balance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. And that's one good thing to kind of to come out of this whole horrible situation. So let's fast forward a few years. So obviously we started working together at Linear.
Yeah.
I launched Brownlee Dean. Obviously I was kind of keeping in touch with you on a you know, because we're mates, on a friendly basis. But then obviously I approached you about a position at Brownlee Dean. So why come work for me? Why Brownlee Dean?
So I think a lot of people in recruitment
be kind, by the way. Be kind here.
I will be kind. I think a lot of people in recruitment will completely understand this, where sometimes you work for businesses where it just all becomes about the numbers. And I don't mean in terms of bringing money into the business, bringing fees in. I also mean numbers in terms of activity, but I think a lot of businesses maybe focus on the wrong kind of activity and the wrong numbers. It is a numbers game, but yeah, I think there's a lot more to it than just focusing on the numbers and the activity. I think it's the way in which you do things. And the thing that was most appealing when you spoke to me about joining Brownlee Dean was that you wanted to do things differently. You know, it's well known in our industry that recruiters cold call people. And in construction, the people that we're recruiting for are very, very busy people. They're out on site, you know, they're in it up to their knees, literally trying to deliver projects on time and on budget, and they haven't got time to be taking cold calls from recruiters. And I've worked in a lot of businesses where that's what you're pushed to do constantly, and the more you do, you know, the more opportunities you'll pick up if you're getting those numbers in. But the fact that you were wanting to look at a different way in which we could do recruitment and get around that cold calling side of things, which like I said before, we're well known as recruiters for cold calling and interrupting people's day. This, you know, the way that we do things at Brownlee Dean and the way that we're pushing things forward it's very different to what I've done previously, but I agree with the way that we're moving things forward. You know, we're evolving.
Yeah.
Again, through the pandemic, who was doing Zoom and team calls to the extent of what they're doing them now? We use a video platform to contact candidates, to contact clients. You know, we're moving with the times and we're evolving. But I've worked for businesses previously where all they were bothered about was how many phone calls and how many dials you made that day.
Yeah.
You could make 100 dials and not get one lead.
Yeah.
And all you've done is piss people off.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's about, yeah, and it's pleasing you say that. I think you're absolutely spot on, Jamie. You make an interesting point. I think, listen, like, picking up the phone in recruitment will always be there, and that is. But it's about for me, it's about basically establishing who your ideal customers are and how you can add value to them. And adding value is for us, and I'm sure you agree with this. It's always about adding value. It's what can we do? How can we evolve? How can we innovate to keep adding value to our clients?
Yeah.
And to do that, we need to understand what their pain points are. And I think a lot of I think recruitment's changing. I think it's becoming more. I think it'll continue to become more of a kind of HR outsourcing process. I think for a lot of the forward thinking businesses, I think that's the way they're going to go. They've got to do more than just be job fillers. You know, it's about getting under the bonnet, being advocates of these businesses, being ambassadors of the businesses, being an extension of their HR, and that's massively that for me that is the future of recruitment. But you can't, you know, if you're just gonna scattergun everyone with phone calls at a real basic level, you're not really going to develop those type of relationships where you can actually add value. You know, and I think for us, I'm sure you'd agree with this. You know, we don't want to work with everyone.
Yeah.
Because if we work with everyone, we can't actually service the clients we work with to the level that we and they would expect. So it's all about identifying the right clients and really trying and, you know, get under the bonnet of what their pain points are and helping them achieve whatever their end goal is. And I think that's for me is you know, we're not unique in that in Brownlee Dean. It's not something that no one else in recruitment's doing. But I feel like, especially now with what's happened with COVID, you know, people's kind of priorities have changed, and we can't, you know, the incessant phone calls day in, day out, with no real substance to them and no real care. I think that's a thing of the past.
One of the things I love the most about my job is doing exactly that, is becoming an extension of another business and being an advocate for that business. If I'm engaged by a client to recruit for them on a permanent basis or a contract basis, you know, I still get contract vacancies in, but I want to learn everything there is to know about that business. I want to learn what the culture is in that business and the kind of person that they're looking for, so that I can then go out to the market and I can sell that business to people. And I love it when a client gives you the time of day and allows you to do that, because it just makes your job so much easier, but you end up doing a much better job for them in the end anyway. So I do absolutely love being like an ambassador as such, I suppose, for businesses in attracting staff to their company.
Yeah.
I do love that side of the job.
Do you not think it's our responsibility, though, as recruiters, to actually ensure the client knows that that's their best way of hiring the best talent? You've got
I think that's where we fall down.
Pick a good recruiter and buy in, and it's about a mutual partnership between the client, the recruiter, and the candidate pool who's interviewing to essentially, you know, get to an end goal and get the best possible talent into the business. And for me, and we know this because we talk about this day in, day out. This is something that's a hot topic in our office. We're constantly talking about it. It just improves the candidate and the client experience. Yeah. The client experience is better. The candidate experience is better. And I think a lot of businesses fall down where, you know, they're engaging with multiple recruitment businesses. They've got CVs flying in left, right, and centre, and those candidates aren't really being communicated with properly in terms of feedback, why they're not suitable. They just get left out in the cold, and they never hear back from a recruiter. That's because the recruiter isn't bought into the process either, because the client hasn't given them any exclusivity. So they've got to kind of, you know, scrat around trying to find a fee from somewhere, where actually, if they know the client's bought into them, they're bought into the process, the client's willing to commit to the recruiter, then basically the recruiter knows they're going to get paid at the end of the day. Yeah. And that's where the magic happens for me. That's where real good recruitment process happens.
Absolutely. If a client's working with you exclusively, you own that problem. If I get a job exclusively and I'm starting to work on that job, I now own that problem for that company. I'm the person they're relying on to solve that problem and get that person into the business.
Yeah.
If you're working on a vacancy that 5 other recruiters are working on, it dilutes it. You know, you've got another 5 people, your competitors as such, out there probably speaking to similar people. Your chances of filling the job have been drastically reduced. There's nothing more rewarding than working with a client who trusts you to go and find the right person for the job for them.
And I think as well, like for me, I totally agree with that. I think for me as well, that what you just said there, I think it takes the focus off speed and back onto quality.
Yeah.
And also, you're all bought into doing the right thing. So, you know, it leads to, I think when you engage with, or when businesses engage with multiple recruiters, it leads to corner cutting. And you know, I think when, as you said, you own the problem, you do the right thing because the client wants you to is bought into the process as well. And there's a, you know, they want it to win-win. You know, they want the client wants you to win, and you want the client to win. You want the candidate to win. Everyone, you know, it's a win-win situation really. And it gets, and when there's multiple agencies involved, it gets really diluted. And I think that's something that I know. Well, we both champion, and I think, you know, the recruitment industry in general, you know, why recruiters have to push back and basically say to clients, listen, we work in this way because this is proven to be the best way of recruiting for your business. It improves company brand, company reputation, and essentially, you know, it saves time. Because as you said at the start, in the construction industry, time is short, especially in contracting, construction contracting, and you know, client hiring managers haven't got time for people to fall out at offer stage because an agency hasn't qualified people properly. And when you engage multiple recruiters, there's always the risk of that happening. So just go on. Sorry.
Just picking up on like one thing that you said previously about how we don't want to work with everybody. We want to work with people who want to work with us. Brownlee Dean is the first recruitment business I've worked for where you've given me the opportunity to say, I actually don't want to work with this business anymore because of X, Y, and Z. Where previously in other businesses, recruitment businesses that I've worked with, I've been pushed to work on roles that I honestly didn't think were worth my time and effort, or the client's time and effort. And I love that you give me the autonomy to walk away from a vacancy if I don't think it's the right fit for our business.
Yeah, but isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
And it's not that you want to do that.
No.
But it's a. I think we both share this. Like, I would rather walk away from business, to keep our long-term reputation intact.
Yeah.
I think that's key. You know, client success is more important than our success. You know, the money will look after itself. But I think you're absolutely bang on. Sometimes it's not right. You know, sometimes clients need to know, actually, we're not the best person to solve your problem here.
Yeah.
We can't solve your problem. You're already engaged with multiple recruiters who've tried to solve the problem. Why not? And listen, we'll recommend ideas of what they can do to solve the problem, but sometimes we're not the right fit. And I think in recruitment, there's just, you know, businesses push their consultants to just absolutely, you know, hammer people. Listen, we've got to work on that role. Got to work on that role. Got to work on that role. Problem is, a lot of perm consultants. If a perm consultant, in my eyes, is working on 20 roles, it's ridiculous. How can you effectively work on 20 perm roles effectively? You just can't. Not one person.
No.
And we know that. Anyway, just moving off that, Jamie. like, I suppose going back to the kind of construction industry, I'd like to get your view on this. What do you think is, what do you think the kind of current assessment situation is with the industry at present? Obviously, we've come out of COVID, um, lockdown in July. I know we personally saw a boom off the back of that. Now we're going into this second wave. It's really frustrating for everyone. Where do you see, particularly in construction, where do you see the market currently?
So my bread and butter was always previously in the commercial construction sector. And I've had to, as you know, I've had to move away from that. There are a lot of recruiters that do that sector, commercial construction, white collar roles. So there's a lot of competition in recruitment for that anyway. However, the market has definitely seemed to have declined due to the pandemic. So we obviously made a decision as a team and as a business to not move away from it completely, because we've got some very solid relationships with people in that sector who both you and I have known for 10 years. Or more for yourself. So we'll never move away from it completely. However, that isn't where we can best support clients at the moment. And actually, there's a lot of redundancies in that sector as well at the moment as well. So again, recruitment, you've just always got to be evolving as a recruiter. And you've got to go where the work is and where the help is needed. And where I see it needed at the moment is in publicly funded civil engineering projects and infrastructure projects. And that is where our focus currently is, and we're doing great. So, sometimes you've got to walk away from what's comfortable. That was my comfort blanket, and I've had to step away from that and now move again at 42 into a different sector, which is, I'm still learning, but that's what you've got to do. And that's kind of my own personal view of what has happened in the market over the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, there's very much kind of two sides of kind of, well, in what we do in terms of kind of construction contracting and civils contracting, two very different sides of the coin. You've got construction contracting, which unfortunately there's redundancies happening. It's really sad to see some great. I mean, we know great people who I'll be honest, been put on furlough and not it's not been handled well by their employers, and then they've seen redundancies in the last month, and as we move to the end of this month, there'll be more redundancies, and it's awful to see. And we're seeing that on one side, and then public funded civils. So, we're looking at HS2, we're looking at highways, we're looking at environment agency work, we're looking at MOD, any kind of critical infrastructure.
Rail, haven't we recently?
Sorry?
We've even touched on rail.
Yeah, rail, and we're looking at critical infrastructure, and that is absolutely, the production roles, white collar roles, your engineers, your agents, those type of roles. For me, the demand is still hugely the demand is huge for those disciplines, and the staff shortage in qualified, competent people is again it is short. Companies are crying out for those individuals, good site agents, good engineers, good sub agents. Those nothing's going to change with that for me, because there's so much critical infrastructure to start, and HS2 is going to suck up so many staff. And then you've got this other side where, top construction project managers, even if they've come through the engineering route, can't seem to get positions. And that's really sad. And I actually think, as an industry, we need to maybe match behaviours a bit more. So, if someone's got the right behaviours to fit with a business, then surely we can move individuals from the construction into the civil sector if they're from an engineering background, and I think that shouldn't be overlooked.
honestly couldn't agree more. I know people who have been in commercial construction for 15 years, they're top of their game in that sector, they've been made redundant, they did a degree in civil engineering, they know they've got those foundations, pardon the pun, you know, that's what they studied at university, but they went into commercial construction. Surely there's got to be something that they can bring to the table in a civil engineering business. There's got to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just hope off the back of this, you know, off the back of the you know, the end of the furlough period and redundancies, which are unfortunately are inevitable. I just hope we can see some, you know, businesses actually thinking, well, yeah, you know, this individual's got the right behavioural attributes to fit in our business. Okay, you know, they've not done much principal civils in the last, you know, 5 years, but yeah, they were an engineer at the start of their career, and they actually worked on civils projects at the start of their career. You know, is there a transferable skill there? And for me, of course there is. You know, and I understand it's a risk. I get that, but I think we often focus too much on kind of sector knowledge and not enough on behaviours in the construction industry.
I had a conversation with a client of mine a couple of weeks ago, actually, where we were discussing this very topic, and he basically said that he would rather employ somebody in his business who maybe hasn't got exactly the right experience that he's looking for, but has got the attitude where they will put in 110% to do what needs to be done to get the job done. And he said he would rather take someone on into his team like that, rather than take somebody on who's got all the qualifications, that tick all the boxes, has the experience, but their attitude just isn't the right cultural fit for the business. They, you know, there may be people who just kind of coast along. You know, he said, I'd rather take somebody that doesn't tick all the boxes, but who has got the right attitude. And I wish there was more people like that in the business, because I think we'd probably have a lot more success in terms of getting projects delivered on time and on budget.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, and I listen, as we said, it's a risk, and I understand why businesses wouldn't want to take the plunge on a you know, construction buyers, project manager, for example. But I think, as we well know, the majority of individuals who and companies that don't marry together and match in the first 6 months of a new so say an individual joins a business in the first 6 months, if that fails to work and they part ways, usually that's down to behaviours.
Yeah.
And we know that.
Yeah.
80% is down to behaviours. So I think there's a big piece on that really that needs looking at, to be quite honest.
Well, we've been speaking with clients about psychometric testing as well, haven't we? So something that I think a lot more businesses are starting to think about now as well.
Yeah. So just to wrap things up, Jamie, so what, like, in terms of, and we'll probably have just a little discussion on this. I mean, the future of kind of recruitment. I mean, we touched on this a little bit before, but you know, I think some and this is a stereotype to a certain degree, but I think some more independent construction and civil engineering businesses, perhaps, you know, they perhaps kind of done things a certain way to recruit staff for the last 10, 15 years. What can those businesses do now to kind of change and evolve? Now we're in COVID and post-COVID, because I think we both know the thing we find hard at the minute is actually, if people are safe in positions and they're valued in businesses, it's very hard to get those candidates to move companies during COVID, which is understandable.
I was just about to say, obviously we recruit for a sector that is the candidates are in very high demand: engineers, agents, quantity surveyors in civil engineering and infrastructure. And I think my advice to businesses who recruit people like that, they maybe just need to look at the way in which they are doing things. If you were struggling to recruit people before, you're going to struggle even more to recruit them now. So you need to be looking at whether you are offering the market rate on salary, on basic salary. You need to be looking at the package that you're offering with regards to what your competitors pay. You know, at the end of the day, money is, you know, people look at money, and if they're in a business but they're not really that happy in the business, but it's a safe job and they've been there a few years, right now it's going to take something special to get them out of that business. So I definitely think that companies should just be reviewing the way that they do things, but also making sure that they know what the market rates are and that they're being competitive so that they've got the best chance of attracting the top talent that they need to join their business.
I mean, I think as well, like, obviously the financials are important, but I think as well, if it's just down to money, as we've found, I think sometimes
No, I agree. Yeah.
So sometimes basically it's down to money, then these individuals should be going back and asking their company for a pay rise, because usually it's got to be more. Perhaps there's got to be other drivers to a move. I mean, just to add to that, I think I just think getting that kind of HR onboarding candidate experience process absolutely nailed down, and having a clear set process of how that's going to work, and really digging down into making the candidate from essentially engagement, whether it's directly or through an agency, all the way through to kind of offer stage and actually onboarding into business for the first few months. That needs to be crystal clear of how that's going to work, when the interviews are going to take place, when the feedback's going to come. The hiring managers need to be involved to keep candidates warm throughout the notice period. I think
communication is absolutely paramount. Things are taking longer. People are working from home. It's taking a little bit longer to get offers through. You need to keep in touch with the people that you're trying to attract to your business, because a lack of communication can cause doubt. You need to keep in regular contact with anybody that you're trying to get into the business. And I think another thing is that you need to remember that whoever you engage with, if you're trying to attract them to your business, it is a two-way thing, and you need to be very aware that you are giving out, I'm trying to word this, you're representing the business you work for when you interview somebody. So yes, the person coming in for the interview is having to represent themselves, but the people who are actually interviewing are also representing themselves and the business. And I just, like, going over the last couple of months, where I've had a bit of experience of this, where, you know, they may not well offer somebody a job, but the candidate who's gone in for an interview has been left with a really, really bad, I don't even know if I should say this, but they've been left with like a really bad impression of that business because of the way the interview was handled or the way things were communicated to them. And
well, it's the perception, it's the external perception of the business, and that's and to be honest, that all links into like employer brand, in building that employer brand and reputation, and it's the candidate experience. You know, I think we all know in life, and it's not exclusive to recruitment. We all know in life, you know, when something goes well, everyone's happy. You know, a candidate's place is great. But to be honest, if there's a really negative experience that an individual has had when engaging with a business, they're probably likely to go and tell more people about that than the person who actually it went well for. Do you see what I mean? So it's actually,
and everyone knows bad news spreads like wildfire, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So I think that it's vital for businesses to kind of, you know, continue building that employer brand. I just think it comes down to basically knowing your process inside out, from actually engaging with the candidate all the way through to onboarding.
Another thing that you said about recruitment businesses becoming more of a HR onboarding support for companies as well. a lot of the people that we recruit for in construction contracting have never had training on interview techniques. You know, they're just doing this as an addition to their job. They don't have a HR function that does that for them. It's their responsibility, but they've never had any training in it. We as recruiters have done endless amounts of training in interview techniques and onboarding and resourcing, you know, headhunting. That's our expertise. If you don't have a department that does that for you, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I think it's just that partnership approach, isn't it? It's working together to achieve that common goal. I think a lot of it's just, you know, your recruitment business, whoever you engage with, you shouldn't be working against them, and they shouldn't be working against you. It should be a partnership, really, and that's what makes me get out of bed in the morning. Makes me tick. You know, I love that part of it. I love like learning and being part of being really under the bonnet of a business and getting to know them. And I know you do as well, Jane. It's it's interesting though, and I think I think lots of improvements have been made, or lots of improvements are being made to kind of how recruitment's evolving, particularly kind of through the COVID period, and you know, we've all had to adapt, and certainly in terms of kind of remote onboarding. But I certainly think there's a lot more we can do as well. So yeah, it's certainly interesting. Anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I think the only other thing that I would add about what I love about my job is when I actually drive past a building and I've had like some part to play in actually. And I'll tell the kids, I'll be like, I built that.
yeah, exactly.
I built this. Not quite, but a very small part.
My engineer set out for those structures. Yeah, that's a classic one that I tend to use. Yeah. No, but that's and it's good to it's great that there's a pride in your job, and that's what, you know, and that's, I'm the same, and I think that's we need more of that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jamie, thanks for coming on. It's been lovely having you. And we'll see you in the office soon. And obviously, it's great to hear your thoughts on kind of your take on what's going on at the minute and the future recruitment. And appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.